All right, welcome back. We are going to do one of our final videos. We might have a couple coming out just as some refreshers or with little bits of information. But in today's video, we're going to construct a service. So we're going to be taking a lot of what we've learned over the last 3 or so videos and compiling it into, how do we construct a service when it's all said and done. There might be some repeated information here, so if that gets laborious, I apologize in advance, but I think it's helpful to not just see the concepts that we've learned, but apply them into a service. So, first thing that you're going to do whenever you're going to create a service is you're going to determine, especially if it's a late service presentation, you're going to determine whether it is a communion Sunday or a non-communion Sunday. Now, for our live streams, obviously that doesn't matter. So we're going to have to go back and find a service that was before quarantine started, and we're going to try and find a communion service. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to duplicate. Okay, so what duplicate does is it does exactly that. It takes a presentation and it duplicates it. That's really helpful because then you don't have to construct a presentation from scratch. So we're going to want to go to duplicate. Now, communion services are every other week. So let's go back. What was the date? Let's see, before quarantine started, so February, we'll do February 9th. Let's try that. So you would search all right. Now see, here's the service that we did on February 9th, contemporary service, so we're going to select that. Now what it did is it just duplicated that service. See, it says success, and now we don't actually want to do this on Sunday. So let's just pretend like our service is tomorrow. Let's do that. But it will, when you duplicate a presentation, it will automatically set it for the upcoming Sunday. Okay. Now, if you'll look down here, you'll see our service is already starting to set at 10:45 a.m. All you'll want to do, and you'll want to make sure you do this, is you want to make sure you change the title, because the title will stay the same. And then when you go back to find it, if you haven't changed the title, it can be tough to find. So you'll want to set the title to whatever date your service is. Now, normally we would be doing this on the 24th, but this is just a kind of a test one, so we're just setting it for Friday, May 22nd. So what we'll want to do is go up here, change your title. Now, I would suggest just changing the date. I know that's not a Sunday, but that's all right. So that way the contemporary stays in there. Putting that word contemporary in there is just helpful so that you can differentiate between the divine services that we have. Okay, so we got the date changed. The date is correct there. Time slot is okay. So now we can go into editing the service. Now the first thing you want to look at is your announcements. Are all of your announcements up to date? Now obviously these announcements are very old, so they are not up to date. But you'll just want to make sure that there's nothing in here that is old and out of date. If I do a short video in the future, I might go into what they call signage feeds, which is basically you can set up announcement slides in a separate area and dump them into here. But we won't get into that right now. It's just important to make sure that your announcements are up to date. First thing that I like to do is pick a theme. So let's do that. Let's go to our welcome slide. We'll go to media. We'll browse our media, and let's pick a theme. We're just going to use a still background for this one. Let's just go with a simple theme for now. And they give you a welcome slide, so you can apply that as smart media. Now, sometimes they'll have welcome to St. John's Lutheran Church. If those slides have that, if it has the name of the church down there, and you apply to smart media, it will automatically put our church's name in there. Our church's name is programmed into the software, so it'll automatically dump it in there. So we got our welcome slide. We always put an announcement slide in here, which it does not look like that this grouping has an announcement slide format. That's okay. We can just leave it like that, or you can go fishing up here to see if there's a different announcement format that you like. It's not that big of a deal if the announcement slide doesn't match. If it does, awesome. If not, that's okay too. So let's move down to our first song slide. First, let's go here and find our music format. We'll apply a smart media. There we go. All right, now you'll see right off the bat, text is small. It's centered to the left, not to the center. So let's just kind of mess with this first a little bit, just to make sure we can get this the way that we look, or to make it look the way that we want. Sometimes this thing is a little fidgety, and you know, I'm not quite happy with how it turns out. It could be that it just has to look weird, for lack of a better way to say it. That is one of the downsides of PowerPoint, is that you cannot edit these text boxes here. So we can just leave it like that. Actually, we can actually just choose a different song. So let's pretend like our opening song for this week is going to be We Crown You. All right, there we go. So let's make sure this is centered. There we go. All right, now we're going to want this text to be bigger, and personally I like it better when it's centered, so I'm going to center it. It's already bolded, which is good. I'm going to expand this text box to give us some more room, but because I'm doing that, I want to make sure that I center the text box. And then let's go up here, just kind of do the standard 65. If you don't like that, you can see if it'll go up to 70. What will happen if it can't fit all of the lines in the size that you want is that you'll get this notification. One or more lines of this item have been scaled to fit the slide in a line break. So, so for instance, this line was too big when you set it to that size. That's okay. Most of the time, they'll just shrink that particular line and then keep all the other lines the font that, or the size that you selected. So that's not a big deal, unless it's super extreme, then maybe you want to bring it down a little bit. But so there you go. So now this song is ready to go. We didn't have to necessarily change the font color or anything. However, what I do like to do is whenever I've edited that first song the way that I like it, spacing is good, size of the text is good, the color's good, it's all good to go. I'm going to take that song, I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste it wherever we have our next song. That keeps you from having to format that grouping of slides every single time you have a song. So let's say that our song for the gospel is going to be Even So Come. So there you go. You don't have to format it because you just copied and pasted the format you were using before. So it looks great. Obviously, when doing that, you might want to check to make sure that no lines really look out of whack. All right, so just for, well, we'll get back to that later. Let's go back up here. Go to the invocation. Go to your media. If you don't close out this window, it will stay in this grouping of slides, which is helpful. Go to your header of things format, apply as smart media, and there's your invocation. I do usually like to center this stuff, just because I'm OCD like that. And we get into our first scripture reading. These scripture readings are just title slides, so you'll just apply a smart media. For right now, we'll just stick with the scripture readings that are here because this isn't an actual service. But in any normal circumstance, you would change these to some other text. And then you would go to your next slide, and like I covered in the last presentation, I like to use the on-screen Bible, which is what this is. You would type your text in there, and then it would show up over here, and you can choose whatever type of animation or color you want, and then that's good to go. So you do the same thing for the epistle. Again, I'm sorry if this is repetitive, but I hope it's helpful. And then you would do the same thing for the gospel. The important thing to do is to remember to change the gospel readings on your header slides as well as in your on-screen Bible slide. It's embarrassing how many times I have forgotten to do that. I will either enter the scripture in here and I won't here, or I'll enter it here and I won't here, and then the scripture that ends up popping on the screen is from 2 weekends ago. So that's never a good feeling. So just make sure you edit it in both places, both the title for the gospel or for the scripture reading and then the on-screen Bible. Okay, so you get through those. We already did this song, so that's good to go. You go to your sermon slide. Most of these groupings will have a sermon slide, so you'll apply a smart media that'll keep the title and everything in there. And then you'll want to just make sure the title of the sermon is correct and that the scripture reading going along with that sermon is also correct. So we get done with the sermon and we go to confession and absolution. This is a slide that I kind of have to manipulate a little bit. We'll apply smart media. Sometimes it doesn't come out looking that pretty, and you just kind of have to manipulate it a little bit to get it to the specification and the look that you want. But that one actually came out pretty good, so we'll leave it with that. The Nicene Creed, this is just a regular title slide, so we'll put that in there. We'll make sure that's centered. Now, the next slide is what I was referencing in our last presentation, where this is an open text box. So you don't want to apply smart media to this because it will erase everything in your text box. So what you'll want to do is go to your grouping of slides, select a background that you like. We'll just go with this one, and then we'll apply as background. All right, that'll keep your text, it'll keep your color, it'll just give it the background that fits the theme that we're using. Now, sometimes the background does not fit super well with the font color, so you'll have to manipulate that. We're using a black background, so white goes pretty good on it. But you might want to manipulate the color of the text depending on the background of the slide. So that's done. We go to our tithes and our offerings. That is also a title slide. Because this is a Communion Sunday, we do not have a song there for our tithes and our offerings. If we did, we would go up, copy the last song that we did, and paste it there, and then change the song. Looks like this week we had the commissioning of our mission team, but we won't for our imaginary service, so we'll take that out, just delete it. Then we have our prayers of the church. That also is a title slide. So apply a smart media, and that will do that. The Lord's Prayer is another one of those things that has an open text box, so we'll want to be sure we don't apply a smart media. We'll want to apply as background. Fits nicely in there. And then we have our Holy Communion slides. One of the reasons it's helpful to duplicate a presentation is because then Holy Communion will always be in there. If you're duplicating from a weekend that we did Holy Communion, that will be in there. You won't have to mess with it. In a future video, I might also go through how to change the song and the volume that goes in with that. But for right now, it's just that's preset, so we don't have to mess with that. But we are getting into our communion song. So what we'll want to do, just for easiness sake, go to the last song that we had, copy that, go back down here, paste it, and there we go. Now what we can do is change it to anything that we want. Let's do "O Come to the Altar." All right, so all your formatting's in there. Some of these some of these lines are long, so you'll see that they're not all fitting in there with the size that we chose, but that's all right. It looks like they're all still pretty readable. Give it a second to load that one there. So yeah, that looks good. Just make sure you delete whatever songs you don't need. We're doing 2 songs for communion these days because we're doing a different style of communion at the altar. So we are going to just make sure we do 2 songs there. And let's see, what can our other imaginary song be? You give thanks. There we go. All right. Then after that, we do a post-communion blessing. Pastor Chris has also been doing a post-communion prayer, so we'll be sure to put that in there. Let's mess with this first, though. We'll want to add. Let's see. That was a title slide, so we can just go here, apply Smart Media, and it will do that for us. Let's see if we wind this out. If that makes it look, yeah, it looks a little better. All right. But like I said, he does a post-communion prayer. So we're going to add an item. So just add content. And then we'll go to our media. We'll apply a header slide, a Smart Media, and we'll just say post-communion prayer. Okay. Oh, better line this out again. There we go. All right, then we have our services benediction. That's just the title slide, so we'll apply Smart Media. You can see if you duplicate your slides, it just goes so much faster. You can just breeze through this, basically apply Smart Media where you can. And some slide groupings will give you the ability, they'll have like a welcome and a send-off slide pre-programmed into them. Some of them won't. And so if they don't, I usually just use either a send-off slide from a different grouping, or I just put in a header slide and I just put "Have a great week," "We're glad you could have joined us," that type of thing. We still got another song that we gotta be sure we take care of. So let's do that. Let's see here. All right. And there you go. A service is really as simple as that. Now you'll see that because we added a different song in here, it took away our audio break that is usually in there. So what you'll want to do is you'll click on this little speaker icon, and you'll just click Stop Background Audio. That will stop it at that slide. Okay. And if you delete that grouping, then the audio will keep running through. So anytime that you take away a grouping of slides that is stopping the audio, you'll want to be sure to go back and just click on that speaker and stop the audio at those slides. That's pretty much it. So we have another blue one down here that is a send-off slide. Oop, I accidentally pasted. That's not what I wanted to do. I do want to cover one more thing before we go, and that is this. You'll notice that for our Holy Communion, it looks like these slides are under one category, or they're grouped together. You might have noticed the same thing with the Creed. That's because they are grouped together in a category. What you can do, for example, if we wanted to, let's just say that this welcome slide and this announcement slide were two slides that we always wanted to have together. We could select those and we can group them, and we can call the group, let's just say service welcome. Now, the benefit of this, and this is only 2 slides, but you'll notice for our communion slides, we titled it Holy Communion, and there's a ton of slides in here for Holy Communion. The benefit of this is that now whenever you want to add that grouping to your future presentations, all you have to do is click Add Item, Reuse Item, and I have to remember what we called it now because I have really bad memory. Service welcome. Okay. There it is. There's our group. So it saved our group. We can just add our service welcome group, and there it goes. So again, this was only 2 slides, but in a circumstance like communion, where you need to group a bunch of slides, it makes it so much easier to add it to future services. You can just save it as a group, and then dump it in there. That was another thing that's important to know. Reusing items is kind of key. If you want to do things like the Lord's Prayer, something that we use over and over again, or you just want to add a song that we've done before, it'll show up there. The Holy Communion grouping. So reusing items is helpful too. But we don't really actually want that there, so we'll just delete it. And we don't actually want these slides grouped, so we will undo group, and there they go. They're their own thing now. So that's slide grouping. That's important to do if you have a lot of slides that you want to use over and over again in future presentations. That is it. I know that seems pretty straightforward, and or at least I hope it does, and if it does, that's because it is pretty straightforward. It's important to just double check that your time slot is okay, and it's also really important to make sure that this green arrow is green and there's an arrow. If not, that means that your presentation was not uploaded yet. And sometimes even if I have the green arrow, I just like to click it again so it synchronizes, and I know that we're good to go. Those are the basics of creating a service. Again, it's, just remember whether it's a communion or non-communion Sunday and duplicate a presentation from that weekend. Make sure to double check your announcements both at the beginning and the end just to make sure they're not out of date. And that's it. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the upcoming video.